Throughout the weeks I spent making content for StarRupture, I have interacted with many different people and have observed some patterns in how some people approach this game. Patterns that repeat again and again. These patterns reduce their enjoyment and they end up blaming the game for that. The game does have its negatives, including misleading you into thinking that you can play it your own way, thus wasting your time, but I'm sure more people would enjoy the game if they got to experience it the way it's meant to be played. I'm also sure that this way, everyone would finish the game in 30 hours instead of 130. So today I want to take some time to go through the biggest mistakes new players make so that you don't waste your time. Mistake number 1 is going into this game expecting a proper first-person shooter. This is a factory game first, and you're expected to build things first, shoot monsters later. Extractors are your primary sources of materials, not meteorite boulders or alien sacks. You already have a meteorite heart at the start of the game, which allows you to build a base core and a basic factory. Do it. Also, build calcium production as soon as you can and focus on sending stuff to corporations. This will help you save so much time, as you will have access to better weapons that make killing aliens much faster, to a map that helps you not get lost in the vast expanse of the world, and to inventory upgrades that will keep you exploring instead of returning home all the time just to offload your loot. If you find yourself running home for this reason, here's a pro tip. Just build a habitat with analyzer inside, get rid of the biofacts, logic boards and whatnot, then deconstruct everything and continue on. But until you hit the wall of needing some blueprint or material, I recommend you put the exploration and all the shooting on the back burner. Explore the world only after Rupture, when everything is dead, and don't mind the boulders unless you're planning to expand your base. Mistake number 2 is wasting your time collecting meteorite hearts and ignitium and then upgrading base core, as well as building too close to alien spawn locations, these monoliths. Don't listen to what the woman in the comms says. You don't need to collect ignitium. Leave it be, and when the world regenerates, it will turn into juicy star tiers. The reason you don't need it is because it's only used for base core upgrades now, which, once you do them, will spawn enemies at these monoliths. Having them spawn will create lots of problems for you, such as having to set up base defense, the fact that turrets have a limited range and aren't activated when you're not nearby, the fact that it's a mess cleaning your base from infection, the fact that you can lose your base completely, at least until the next rupture, if you get some strong enemies overpowering you. It's just not worth it. Instead, build your structures with plenty of space in between. You'll need the room anyway for rails and other things. Place multiple cores so their areas barely overlap, and, if absolutely necessary, add a few core amplifiers. This will remove the need to upgrade your core and will let you focus on actual progression, rather than grinding upgrade materials and fending off enemies. The next mistake new players make is they play the game like Satisfactory. You see, Satisfactory operates off the push principle. Miners and extractors run continuously and push resources onto belts at a fixed rate. Constructors, assemblers, and manufacturers do not check whether the next stage needs the item and just push them onto belts if there's space. This creates backups and idle machines caused by blocked outputs. In contrast, StarRupture uses pull system, where items only travel through rails if there's demand for them. This means that you don't have to think hard about dedicating whole rails to a single product, and you can put all your rails on one rail, throughput permitting. That's not to say it's not impossible to have your rails grind to a halt. It's still possible if you create a loop and your materials either get stuck, not knowing where to go, or get carried in circles. Another way to get your rails blocked is to send more stuff than rails can handle. You already know that each rail has a different speed, but many people look at the outputs of the thing they're producing to determine if their rails are up to speed or not. Or even worse, don't look at throughputs of rails at all. But the correct way to set up your rails is to sum up all the inputs from your production buildings and never let your rails exceed their carrying capacity. Let me just play you a clip from my other video that demonstrates this. At some point you will be faced with the challenge of overly productive machines that will clog your rails. In my case that was chemicals and hardening agents. There's many things that need chemicals in the game, and so we need to have at least 2 furnaces dedicated to producing them. The problem here is that one furnace requests 5 materials per 2 seconds, and 2 of them request 10. That's way too much for a little rail to handle. The second version of the rail, the best one I had access to, can only support 4 materials per second, but we need 5 to power 2 furnaces, so even if the rail was fully free from any other materials, it would still not be enough to power these 2 furnaces. So to make sure your rails never clog, you have to make some calculations. Yes, calculations. You're playing a factory game after all. That's an inherent part of the game. Unfortunately, the game doesn't yet have some network, bird's eye view, where you can see all your inputs and outputs, so you tend to resort to online tools or, like I and many people in my Discord, use spreadsheets. I made this one where I calculated most efficient ratios for production chains. See, with a pull system, it is best to go backwards from the end product that you will be making. For example, here you would be going backwards from the lens to determine how many products you need. You'd look at the compounder's lens recipe, see that it requires, for example, 40 synthetic resin per minute. So you draw 2 compounders to make 40 per minute, then you would notice that each of them requires 200 calcite sheets per minute, and after checking out fabricator production, you'd notice that it produces 60 calcite sheets per minute. So what you would do next is find the least common multiple of 260, which would be 600. 600 divided by 60 is 10, so that's how many fabricators you need. And 600 divided by 200 is 3, so that's 3 compounders producing resin that you need to fully utilize 10 fabricators of sheets. But then, once you look back at the lens, you see that you have 3 compounders that need 120 resin, and you're only producing 60. So you double the resin production, and this is what you end up with. The problem is that you're not playing the game backwards. And that's why and how you end up with bases that you later have to scrap because they're ineffective. This is why I made this spreadsheet. Please use it and save yourself time, but do fully watch my base layout video in the pinned comment before you start building, as it explains everything in great detail and will save you even more time. You don't want to be this guy and spend hours rebuilding things because you rushed my video and skipped all the important bits. The only thing I'd add to that video is that I am calculating everything based on materials per minute, because that's how the devs intended it. If you start dividing inputs and outputs down to seconds, you'll end up with messy decimals that won't add up later on. Also, I've mentioned building multiple bases several times now. That's another mistake that people make. They try to build one mega factory. What I'm going to say is controversial, but the game is very linear actually. You might think you're given options, but you're not. You often can't satisfy one corporation without upgrading others, because you won't have access to things needed to advance that one corporation. It's all intertwined. Similarly, you might think you can build one mega factory if you just find that perfect spot, and it might even work for a while, but there is no escaping the way the devs intend for you to play. And the way they want you to play? Well, with the magnitude of materials required in the late game and the amount of deposits all around the map, there's basically just one viable way to play: building many bases at various deposits and shipping all that stuff across the map. And once again, here I have to mention the spreadsheet, where everything is arranged in modules based on one central ingredient. I.e., you make 2 titanium modules, then have some rails or cargo dispatchers going from them into other modules. They produce everything they're supposed to produce and then ship the outputs for further processing in another module. Check these videos for more info. The left one explains the basic concepts and common pitfalls, while the right one handles the precise layout and ratios of buildings to produce materials at 100% efficiency. You'll find both videos in the pinned comment, but please don't start building according to the video on the left. It's imperfect. Watch the improved one as well. Another thing that people make wrong assumptions about is rails. We've already established that rail throughput is important. Rail version 1 lets you transport 120 materials per minute, Rail v2 240, and Rail v3 480. The thing is that if you connect all your rails through a splitter, something like this, in order to combine the materials, the speed of the whole chain after this splitter will inherit the speed of this one rail. Because there was a bottleneck here on this small rail, all the materials will move one after another and won't change speed. They will move exactly like they were moving on this one rail, one after another. One tip that I can give to mitigate this is to have a mixed depot instead of a splitter with 2 rails coming in and 2 coming out, but those aren't available until late game. Which brings me to another mistake. People overestimate the need for storage depots. Non-mixed use storage depots are useful for A. Reducing inefficiencies of long rails by creating a buffer at the end of the line so that your production buildings don't have to wait for the shipment from the other end of the map. B. Collecting materials for you to use in recipe station or basic item printer. C. Making travel faster across the map by connecting 2 depots and filling them with some basic material, and then jumping onto the rail to be transported across. D. Combining the outputs of several buildings. That's it. If you're putting a depot after each production building, you're just wasting time. If your production doesn't work without it, it means your production is not designed efficiently, and you should take a look at those base design videos I've been talking about this whole time. Still, I'm sure there are some other use cases for depots that people have found. If you know any more, leave a comment below. And what's the biggest mistake you have made in the game so far? Again, leave your comments below and join my Discord if you haven't yet. See you there.